So welcome to a quick tour of the Evora GT430. This one is resplendent in motorsport green, which is rather unimaginatively the same colour as my Exige, but I never got bored of that colour, and I think somehow, if possible, it looks even better on an Evora. So very happy with the colour. Now I think it's safe to assume that anyone watching on this channel knows their stuff, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time explaining what a GT430 is, but I'll just have a quick recap of what makes it special. It's limited to 60 cars worldwide. That's a number I'm hoping they stick to. In the UK at least, I think demand has been stronger than Lotus anticipated. The original allocation was just 6 cars for the UK. But there are thought to be over 20 UK cars produced so far. So it's done well in this market, but I sense perhaps at the expense of other markets. Now, we have to talk about aerodynamics with the GT430. Those vents there are open, they're not blocked. As you can see from a quick look from inside the wheel arch. Now, what happens here is you have an air curtain formed by air rushing in there, and you can actually see this side of it. There is a gap, so air is forced through there at quite high pressure, forming a curtain around the outside of the wheel, and pressure is released through the wheel arch vents and through the cutaway A panel underneath the GT430 badge there. Now, it's a very bespoke process buying a GT430. As standard, you get carbon effect door mirrors, which have no place, in my opinion, whatsoever on a car with this much real carbon, and the carbon is of such high quality there just isn't the need for any fake carbon. So I asked for the door mirrors to be painted in phantom black to match the A-pillars and various other bits, and I'm much happier that there is no fake carbon on this particular car. So inside you'll find a few other things that are bespoke to this car, such as the seat and the stitching. Now, if you choose the lightweight Lotus carbon fibre seats, they are made in-house, so you can have them trimmed pretty much any way you want. And more by accident than design, I'm sure, but this car appears to be the only one with a satin finish carbon fibre instrument binnacle. Now, all the others I've seen have a gloss carbon fibre finish, which is at least more consistent with the finish on the roof and the front access panel. However, the satin finish does reduce reflections in the windscreen, so I'll take that. The rest of the interior is standard GT430, which means a mixture of dark grey Alcantara and perforated leather. It works nicely for me, as does these large carbon fibre sills, which are really beautifully made, and they're so nice. In fact, I had them covered in PPF to protect them. Now, this one's quite a lightweight spec with no stereo and the carbon seats. The only options that did add some weight were aircon and some sound deadening. Now, another key thing to mention on the GT430 are the reprofiled front and rear bumpers. They're made entirely of carbon fibre. The idea was to remove weight from in front of the front axle and behind the rear axle, so to take weight out of the extremities, improving weight distribution, turn-in, and reducing the low polar moment of inertia, something that is further improved by the 10 kg lighter titanium exhaust. They're also reprofiled to make the car shorter overall. So one of the surprises of the GT430 is it comes across as a little bit smaller than the previous Evoras. So despite all the drama of the splitters, vents and wings, it's actually a surprisingly compact car, coming in at 4.5 centimeters shorter than the Evora 400. Now, these carbon parts are horrendously expensive to replace, so this splitter at the front I've actually doubled up with PPF. It's got normal X-Belts on the top and some extra thick rally grade PPF underneath, but to date actually the ground clearance is surprisingly good, and I haven't made any contact at all with the front splitter, so it's less of an issue than I had feared. Now this hole in the front grille there is where the towing eye screws in. It screws in counterclockwise, and it's a really neat solution to that problem, I think. Now the front chicken wire grille is it's improved for me over the Sport 410 because that had a plastic egg box grille in the front and a different finish there. So I think it's good that they've got a consistent finish. The downside is it is extremely soft and weak, barely up to the job, to be honest. After a track day at Silverstone, there were several sort of dents in it just caused by rubber, but fortunately the solution is simple. It's a coat hanger in round behind and you just pop it back out. So it's easily fixed, but it's also very easily dented and mended, so they could have done with something a bit stronger there. Now, I wouldn't normally show you underneath the car, but actually this car is well worth having a look under here. Don't know how much you can see of that, but there's a lot of cooling stuff going on under there. There's an entire load of scoops and knacker ducts cooling various parts of the engine. So a lot of the air intake for cooling the engine comes in from underneath here, which is quite interesting. As you can see, a very flat floor to aid aerodynamics. So a quick look at the business end of a GT430. So here we have our Öhlins adjustable dampers with helper springs. We have forged aluminium wishbones. Top and bottom is our anti-roll bar. We've got our carbon diffuser and carbon vent at the back. Also, as standard, you get braided hoses with every GT430, and these brakes are utterly astonishing. It's absolutely titanic brakes. The calipers are the same as the Sport 410. The rotors are the same. They're not fully floating, but they're two-piece, so you could just change the rotors and keep the bells, keep the hubs here. This J-hook design transforms the way the car stops. Now the reason the rear wheels are off here is because that's the easiest way to adjust the Öhlins at the back. So adjusting the front dampers is much simpler. You just put the steering on full lock and you can easily get access to the rebound and compression. So up at the front you can see the lightweight Evora GT4 race damper mounts, which are much lighter, much stronger and unique to the GT430. One of the notable issues I've had with this particular car is a sticky boot release. Let's see if this has worked. It has. So working nicely now, as you can see. So this is your boot space, no different to any other Evora. Lithium ion battery in there. Now again, I didn't want the red painted supercharger cover. I preferred the black crackle finish because the red one just looks hand painted in red, and well, I don't mind the idea of a red top for the 430 engine. I do think that this looks better, although it does look identical to an Evora 400 engine. No difference at all. So once that's ready, you start with this. And you can see a little bit about what an Evora, it's shared with the 400. We've got slight detail changes, slightly different graphics, GT430 badge, and you can see this has got door openings. That also has a tyre pressure monitoring system, so you can see at any time what your tyre pressures are. It's really useful, I use that a lot. So you've got some great features there, and then you've got the extra speedo up there is useful. You can set that to kilometers. If you're abroad, it's quite a good feature. This over here is one of the more useless features. Now this car has no water temperature gauge, only that blue light. When that blue light's out, the car's warm. So there's a strange omission there. And over here we have time, temperature, mileage, and GSI stands for Gear Selection Indicator, which is some sort of eco nonsense, which is utter rubbish. Now, down here on this panel we've got our HVAC controls, and they're all clearly laid out and work really well, no problem at all. You've got much finer range of adjustments, so that controls fan speed, that controls temperature, and that controls where it comes out. So it's quite a good system. Now, plaque. Let's hope they stick to that. Stuff like that works a lot better than Exige. We do have some room back here. This badge here. Now, on the press and prototype cars, they had what I thought was much nicer raised lettering decals rather than this sticker. Now I know what they're trying to do. The shape of that is supposed to copy the shape of these, so I get that, but it is ultimately a very cheap sticker. So I think they could have done a better job there. This is quite nice, but probably should be carbon, shouldn't it? Right, so along this range we've got a sport button, exhaust button. I've actually had that put in. That's normally blank on a GT430. You can't manually make the car louder like you can a 400 or 410. This is door lock button, that's hazards. Now this is your race DPM system, so it's an advanced traction control and stability system. It's very good. I recommend that for use on track. We've found out that in sport they really get through rear brake pads very quickly. On race, no problem. Now the TC system is interesting. So we go to race now, and you can hear it immediately. The idle's gone up, and we've got race. Now from here, I need to turn race off. And we've got over here traction level 1. Traction level 1, I can now go plus, traction level 2, plus, traction level 3, plus, traction level 4, plus, traction level 5. Now that's traction off fully. Now if you want to just press race again, that will go back into race. So that's how that works. It's a great system. I haven't used it on track yet, but I think it will be really, really useful for the wet track days. But in the dry, the car's got so much traction, it's barely an issue. So that is pretty much your walk around of a GT430. I'm very pleased with it. As I said, it's a very bespoke process. One of these cars, you can have any bit of any trim or leather in any style you want. Do you really want to see the glove box? It does have a glove box. Look at that. The luxury. So, these seats, for example, so the GT430 you get black here. Black in door panel inserts, and you get matte black there, so they all kind of match. You also get a matte black or a gloss black finish here. These are all unique to the GT430, as is the carbon binnacle. As you can see, no reflection from that, but there are the lovely bonnet vents, the lovely wheel arch vents. So that is what you can see in the rear view mirror of a GT430, exactly the same as a Sport 410 with the carbon louvered tailgate. You cannot see the wing in there because it's so high mounted. However, you can see the wing in the rear view mirror. In the wing mirrors, you can see the wing quite proudly. Just to remind you what you're in. Now I will say these wing mirrors are off a Proton, they're off a different car, it really shows. They're not very good. They're one of the areas where the parts bin element you know, is a negative. They're not great mirrors. You can't really adjust them out wide enough on that side, but they look okay and they work okay, but I think they could have done better. Some custom bespoke mirrors would have been really nice. And we do have Ford heart spin switchgear, which some might think is an improvement over There's definitely forward parts. An improvement over the 1990s Cavalier stalks in an Exige. It is an improvement, but they're no better than average. They're no better than okay. Where Lotus do score highly is where you'd expect them to score highly. The control weights, pedals, the principal driving controls are all absolutely fantastic. So steering, pedals, gear shift, the quality and feel of those is outstanding, and you've got a lovely balance between control weights. So the stuff that you'd expect Lotus to do well is done very well. As a driver's car, it is pretty spectacular, very capable on track, incredibly composed at high speed, as you'd hope with the downforce claim. So we're on a fairly gnarly gravel road and no contact, mercifully, with the front splitter. Yes, there's a lovely sense of Lotus delicacy about steering and astonishing accuracy. Gearbox is fantastic, and it's a thoroughly enjoyable car around the circuit, very quick, but it's massively better road car than an Exige. If not quite as lively and dramatic as an Exige on circuit. It's very composed. So yeah, I think it's a fantastic car. Very happy with it. I mean, even driving very slowly, you can enjoy the quality of the main driving controls, and you can get an auto, but I wouldn't get one. This is delightful in manual, absolutely lovely in manual, and it's one of the best manuals you can buy currently in terms of quality of shift.